first, I'd just like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining us at the 9th Asian Wetland Symposium and the first ever virtual symposium. You're in session 2 on nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approaches to disaster risk reduction. My name is Katie Bimson, and I'm a program officer for water and wetlands at IUCN's Asia Regional Office. I'm based in Bangkok. So in my work, I support the implementation of a regional project on strengthening wetlands conservation and integrating ecosystem-based adaptation approaches. And I also support the Secretariat for the Indo-Burma Ramsar Regional Initiative. So today, as mentioned, we have 3 presenters who will explain their work on nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction in Asian wetlands. And these presentations are really exciting because they bring us through a range of existing solutions and various wetland ecosystems throughout Asia. So we're really looking forward to learning more about them and how we can potentially scale them up in the future. So I just wanted to start by briefly introducing and defining nature-based solutions to make sure we're all on the same page. So IUCN has quite a long definition of nature-based solutions, but it is really important and all the components are quite important. So the definition is actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystems that address societal challenges, such as climate change, food and water security, or natural disasters, effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So that last part is really, really key here. We need to make sure that the action that we're doing provides human support and ecosystem support and biodiversity support. And that's often something that's overlooked. So it's important to note also that NBS is an umbrella term. So you'll see throughout our presentations today, there will be a lot of different terms used, a lot of different acronyms, some alphabet soup, if you will, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. People will use terms like ecosystem-based adaptation or eco-DRR, ecosystem-based approach to disaster risk reduction, or forest landscape restoration, FLR. But it's important to note that the thing that they all have in common is benefits to address societal challenges and benefits to ecosystems and biodiversity, regardless of the terminology used. So I want to invite our presenters to use whichever term you're focused on and whichever term you're used to using, but for our participants, just to note that we're all talking about similar ideas here. And on the next slide, you can see just a little bit more of an introduction on nature-based solutions. We have in the center, we have nature-derived solutions. So you can see some windmills there, or solar power is another example. Often people will use nature-based solutions when they're talking about things like this, but this isn't in fact a nature-based solution. It doesn't give back to the environment in any way. It stops us from harming the environment more, but it doesn't actually give back anything. So we consider those nature-derived solutions. And on the far right of the screen, you can see nature-inspired solutions. So examples of when engineers look at cells and they use the structure of cells to design something, or they look at animals and they use aspects of the animals in designing planes or cooling buildings. So these are all examples of looking at nature and getting an idea and using it in our work. But again, it doesn't feed back to biodiversity and ecosystem benefits. So in the first photo, you can see a restored mangrove ecosystem along the coast. And that's a real example of a true nature-based solution. The mangroves provide habitat to fish and act as a nursery. They also provide habitat for wetland birds and lots of different flora and fauna. So that checks the biodiversity box. And then they also provide this coastal protection and prevent against erosion for the inland community that you can see there. So that is an example of a true nature-based solution. And we're going to learn about many more of those today, I'm sure. And we again invite you to share your ideas and thoughts on this. So without further ado, I would like to hand off to our first speaker. Ms. Amiko Nagakura is from Wetlands International Japan. And she will present on the role and function of wetlands for climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction in Asia. So Amiko, I will stop sharing my screen and let you share yours, and the floor is yours.
Then, as Madam Chair mentioned me, my name is Emiko, and I am working at Wetlands International Japan. We are based in Tokyo, and one of international organization partner of Ramsar Convention. Today, I simply introduce our current project related to EcoDRR and wetlands. And in relation to Asian Wetland Symposium, I will be session chair for session 7. So if you have not registered yet, I'm looking forward to see you in session 7 as well. So today I'm talking about EcoDRR project related to wetlands in Japan and Asia, as Chair said. And I'm going to show you next slide. Okay, so this is our project summary. The title is this one, as I already said, and duration will be 3 years. Because of Japanese fiscal years, it's gonna be April to March for 1 year. And generally it is 3 years, but due to COVID-19, we may extend our project 1 year because it's quite difficult to go outside of Japan, and we cannot have other experts from outside of Japan as well. And this project is funded by K. Darling Nature Conservation Fund. K. Darling is our association, consists of Japanese big companies. They having a fund to support environmental NGOs to implement a project. So they receive applications every December for environmental projects. So if you are interested, I recommend you to check their website maybe in October to register for applications. And this project is implemented by Wetlands International Japan, our organization. But at the same time, we are working with other NGOs and also university professors from Japan and other countries. Okay, so this is the background of project. As you know, the number of disasters increases globally, and the damage has also expanded. Therefore, ecosystem-based approaches to disaster reduction, it is called EcoDRR, draws attention in recent years. And also, Asia is the most vulnerable area to disaster in the world. There are many disasters like cyclones, typhoon, tsunami, and many others. And EcoDRR has integrated into various international frameworks, such as Sendai Framework and Sustainable Development Goals and Convention on Biological Diversity, and of course, Ramsar. In 2015, maybe some of you attended Ramsar COP12 held in Punta del Este, Uruguay. There was resolution 1213, Veterans and Disaster Risk Reduction. Okay. And objectives of this project is quite simple. We try to examine traditional and local EcoDRR related to veterans in Japan and Asia. And hopefully we will be able to evaluate how they work. And another objective is by exchanging and sharing case studies. The functions of disaster risk reduction of veterans are recognized and better understood. And yeah, another hidden objective is to collect international trends related to climate change and veterans for our organization. Then I'm going to activities. I think we were quite lucky to start our project in 2019 because if our first year will be last year, we will not have field study and workshop with Japanese and Asian experts because we had Asian experts from Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Philippines, Nepal, and Thailand. We will not be able to have this kind of opportunities from last year. Actually, we supposed to go to Thailand to visit one of our case study, but we just postpone our schedule, and we don't know when actually we will be able to visit. And another activity is consider format for case studies, and we collected case studies of traditional and local equity case studies from some countries. And this one, yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, this is another activity of our project. And yeah, this is actual field study and workshop we had 2 years ago. We hope to have this kind of opportunity maybe next year, but let's see. And this is our format for case studies. It is consist of 3 pages now. It used to be 2 pages, but we revised once for easier understanding and for case studies. This is consist of items such as name of the site, location, what kind of ecosystem is related. For example, is it about lake or coast or river or marsh, something like that. And also related disaster. Is it about typhoons, cyclones, or erosion? And background of the site. And we have a section of disaster prevention function, and also what is about past and present. And other part of format is gifts from nature. Generally, the site is wetland, and we have some ecosystem services from wetlands, so we call it like gifts from nature. And another part is traditional and local knowledge and practices. We first researched it is just about traditional knowledge and practices, but after starting to collect case studies, we realized that it is not only about traditional, because some technologies and knowledge are quite not new, but it is still a local and small scales. So we added local when we revised. And also our veterans are normally, unfortunately, faces challenges like development or other pressures of land use. And we put lessons learned to the end of page 2 of format. And this one is page 3. We try to make easier to fill out. We listed associated ecosystems which were fit our case studies. And also we pointed out what kind of disaster will be related. And we also put ecosystem services for this area. And later on, we realized that we want to know about stakeholders who are involved in management of these wetlands. And also, if we can know, we also want to know funding resources for management of wetlands or conservation or restoration. And the last part is about reference. And today I'm not going to talk about individual case studies, but we collected these case studies like coastal forest from Bangladesh, coastal lake in India, coastal erosion prevention in Indonesia. Maybe Nyoman may speak about Indonesian case. I don't know yet, but and in Japan, because majority of our project team are Japan, so we have many Japanese cases like restored wetlands, rice paddy, pine forest, and also bamboo forest near the river. And also we have marsh from Philippines and pond, river, coastal wetland from Thailand. And this is our future plan of activities. We hope to collect additional case studies. Yeah, hopefully from some other countries. And at this moment, it is going to be difficult to having workshop on site. So we may plan to have this kind of webinar or Zoom workshop. Hopefully next year. And we will share information and case studies through our project website, which is under construction by myself. And at this moment, it is a little bit messy, but I will make it better. And we also plan to making a digital booklet to share. And finally, at this moment, when you go to this website, it is just say coming soon because it is under construction, as I said. And but in the months, I will put some case studies to this website, and other case studies will be also added in near future. So hope you will visit and I will not make you disappointed. And this is my last slide. So thank you for listening to my presentation.
Great, thank you, Miko. I see there's a question from Connor Walsh in the chat box about the format for the case studies, saying that he couldn't see the table on the past and the present, but would like to learn more about it. Could you go back to that slide or explain it a bit further for him?
Okay. So additional, okay, so firstly, when you see the blue one, it's like navy, it says disaster prevention function. So sometimes it's regulating service like reducing wave forces and actions, and it might be also reducing land subsidence and also reducing coastal erosion. This one can be pleasant. And okay, I picked up something, but past, sometimes no information available, but okay, I choose something different. Okay, so one of case study is about Bunom. It is a pond in Thailand, and sometimes it is called Monkey Cheek. For this one, disaster prevention function pleasant one is flood water retention and reducing flood, and also pushing out saline water back into the sea. And in the past, it was a water storage, and it also reduced flood even in the past. And when we go to additional function, like provisioning service, supporting service, a service, and also cultural service of veterans. For the present, this fund is for recreation and also water sports center and also environmental education venue. In the past, the water was used for food plants, and also there was fish, and there were some aquatic resources. So sometimes, yeah, this information can be put in here.
Great, thank you. And if there are any other questions from our participants, please feel free to add them. I think for myself, I just have a question on behalf of everyone in the meeting. If they've seen your presentation and they have an immediate case study that comes to mind, is there a way that they can share this with you? Are you still collecting them that way? I understand the website's still a bit under construction.
Yeah, it is under construction, but URL itself is permanent. So if you visit this website maybe next month, there will be some case studies available.
Okay, great. If there's no other questions, any other questions from our participants? Don't see any in the chat box. So thank you, Amiko. That was really interesting. I think it's very important work to be highlighting all of the traditional and local knowledge in the region. We have so much, like you said, we have so many disasters in the region, but we also have so much history of dealing with it. And there's so much to learn here. I would also like to just suggest or ask if you've looked at the Panorama platform yet. Just focus a lot on nature-based solutions and an ecosystem-based DRR. So maybe that could be another place or source where you can find other examples as well. All right, so I will share my screen here and we will move to our next presentation. We are right on time. Isn't that excellent? So our next presenter is Nyoman Suryadiputra. I'm sorry, I'm sure I said that wrong. From Wetlands International Indonesia. We have colleagues on the call here. And he will present on the application of nature-based solutions and eco-DRR in peatland areas. Very exciting and important ecosystem for us in Asia. So Nirman, the floor is yours. You can share your screen if you have any.
Yeah. So thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon. Good morning. I don't know where you are now. So thanks also to Emiko conveying the message regarding the coastal erosion, because my presentation will actually related to that. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see on the screen. So
Yes,
this is
see.
about the application of nature-based solution and the eco-DRR on tropical peatlands. So currently we are working in North Sumatra in South Tapanuli, which is quite far away from my hometown now. So this project, actually, I would like to present the ongoing projects, partly funded by the IKI Germany and partly funded by the EU DEFCO. So the EU DEFCO one will be finished by the end of this year, and the one by IKI will be next March 2021. So I should clarify myself. My position is now is Nyoman Suredi Putra. Used to be the director of Wetlands International Indonesia, but now I'm the senior advisor to the Yayasan Lahan Basah. So Yayasan Lahan Basah is a part of the global network of the Wetlands International. So I'm not going to mention about the summary, but at least I can convey the messages regarding what we have been doing, yeah, with the local community, yeah, which is located in the very deep pit in North Sumatra. So how we do it, yeah, and then what conclusion that we can derive after we are dealing almost 2 years in this particular area. So before I'm going into much detail, I would like to share with you regarding the project location. Yeah, so I hope everyone is aware. Yeah, actually, our peatland in Indonesia is quite huge in terms of the area. I think the largest tropical peatlands in the world there. We have about 20 million hectares of peatland with the average depth about 5 meters. So actually, peatland, it is not only important from the carbon stores, yeah, because it stores huge amount of carbon, but it stores huge amount of fresh water. So I would say actually our fresh water in Indonesia mostly located in the peatland area. So when the peatland area is degraded, yeah, so we will have a very serious problem in the future, because most of our peatland, actually they are feeding the fresh water into the main rivers, big rivers in Sumatra, Kalimantan, also in Papua. Yeah, at the same time, the water will keep the pit wet. So by keeping the pit wet, so that means the pit will not be oxidized, will not be burned. Yeah. And also it will be staying there. Actually, I'm very doubtful regarding the term of nature-based solution. Yeah, because we should ask ourselves, how can we sustain this kind of solution? Yeah, does it last long, or it is just of a temporary basis? I can show you later on. So this is our project site in North Sumatra. I mean, in the map in the left-hand side, you can see the boundary with the dark color, the black one. So that's area, it's about 2,389 hectares. So actually, all of the area dominated by peatland. I would say it's a very deep pit. Yeah, in the average, maybe about 5 to 6 meter depth. So it stores huge amount of carbon, about 5 million tons more or less of carbon. Yeah, so that is why it deserves to be protected. It is not only because of the carbon value, but it is also, it creates a lot of problems if we are not going to protect it. The problem is the area will be burning because of there are so many canals. So we already calculated, look at the right bottom side here, that's the canal network. So the area we are working actually in the villages, not in the private concession areas, but this village actually is surrounded with so many concession areas of the oil palm. Yeah. So the concession areas, the oil palm concession, they are dominating by the canal networks. Maybe for your illustration, 1 hectare of peatland, if they have to convert it into oil palm, or into the acacia plantation. So they have to build the canal drainage in between 120 until 700 meters per hectare. So what does it mean? Huge amount of pit water will be drained out from the ecosystem. And as the result of that, the pit getting drier and drier, susceptible to fire, oxidized microbiologically, and also wash away during the rainy season. So at the end, the pit will no longer be there. The carbon already emitted, yeah, and then the area will be inundated by water. So after the fire, it come up the water, the flood. Okay, that's the illustration, yeah, of the problem. So what we have been doing so far in this particular village, actually we try to convince the local villages, yeah, because they planted already the oil palm. So we inform them actually their peatland is keeping subsided, yeah, regularly. Why? Because the water is being drained. So we try to convince them. It took almost 6 months to socialize our project about the danger of having canal in the peatland area. So how to do that? We need to retain the water. How to do that? By blocking the canals. Yeah. So we did a lot of scientific survey to determine how many canals need to be built in order to detain the water in the pit. Yeah. But unfortunately, because the project has not much money, and then we try to build only 16 dams. So you look at this, for example. So this is dam we built together with the local community. Yeah. So before we start building the dam, look at this one in the bottom, in the middle part, and this is the material. We are using the areca nut stem, very long. It looks simple, but this areca nut stem, it can reaching about 9 meters tall. They're penetrating deep down into the pit and touching the mineral soil underneath. Yeah. So, but before we did it, it took us 6 months to do what? Socialization. We did the free prior informed consent to make sure that the people understand why we need to re-wet their peatland. Yeah. So it is not only to avoid their area from fire, but it is also how to make sure that the palm oil they already planted, I mean, will not be leaning or collapse, because many of the oil palm in the peatland area, when the pit is subsided, the trees will be collapsed. So we try to convince them, okay, let's block the canal. Yeah. So we built 16 of them. So then in between the canal that we've blocked, we put this, what we call it, the floating net cages for aquaculture activities. So we introduced the catfish, yeah, in this kind of floating net cages, because in order to make sure to the community that by blocking the canal, we can also create a new livelihood, alternative livelihood. It is not just re-wet the peatland, but it is also producing something that can come up with the economic value, like fish aquaculture. So apart from that, we also invited the local community to prepare the polyculture plant species. Yeah, you look at this one. This is rattan. Rattan is very interesting because the young fruit can be eaten by the local community. And the other one is jelutong latex. So this one day, I mean, if you eat the chewing gum actually, the gum itself, it comes from this kind of plant, yeah, latex, the jelutong. And the other one, we also planted sago. Yeah. So this pictures actually to show you how we integrate between the re-wetting of the peatland, restoring the peatland with the livelihood, yeah, with also with the polyculture, and with also on how to develop the fish meat. I mean, look at this, the feed. Yeah. So we also introduced the maggot, the black soldier flies. So people can now practicing on how to produce the living kind of animal, stuff that can feed to the fish. Otherwise, if they are using the artificial food like pellets, it will be too expensive. Yeah. So look at this. Yeah. On how actually the canal that we block actually being productive. I mean, becoming used as a media for aquaculture. So how actually with the mechanisms to work with the local community, we are applying what we call it the bio right. So forget about the term bio right. I prefer to use the term as a conditional grant. Each of the community group receiving one contract. Yeah. So one contract representing for 10 households, and one contract is worth it around, let's say, 75 million rupiah or 50 million rupiah. Yeah? So it is about maybe 5,000 euros per contract. So in the contractual agreement, we put some clause. Yeah, those clauses need to be negotiated with the local communities. Number one, they are not allowed to use fire. They are not allowed to use the chemicals, dangerous chemical pesticides, because many of the people, oil palm plantation, normally they use pesticides, which is not allowed by the government. So we put many kind of conditions in the contractual agreement, but in return to that, we will let the community group to borrow money from us. But this money, it is not really a loan, it is not really a grant. It is a kind of a conditional grant. After some years, if they can fulfill all the conditions, yeah, according to the contractual agreement, so this kind of conditional loan, or whatever you call it, conditional grant, it can be changed into a fully 100% grant. So this is a very good, we already started since maybe 25 years ago in Central Java, where we asked the local community to rehabilitate the eroded coastal areas, which used to be a mangrove forest, and it was eroded. And then we are using this kind of mechanisms, yeah, I mean the conditional loan mechanisms, and it works very well. And we did also the same way, the same approaches in Aceh after the tsunami in 2004. So it was very interesting because how to attract the local community to participating in our projects, but in return, they have to have a benefit. Yeah, we cannot just give them an instruction. Do not use fire, please do not cut the trees, whatever. Yeah, but if they don't see the direct benefit for them, forget it. Yeah, so this is the money that we lend them. Every group receiving about 5,000 euros. So they use the money as a working capital. For example, for the duck farming, even this for the bicycle repairing workshop, sewing machine or whatever. Yeah, there's so many. At least there are 12 different types of small-scale alternative livelihoods that have been developed in our project sites. Yeah, so it is very interesting. This is one of the contractual agreement that they have to maintain after they build the dam. So they have to maintain. Otherwise, many of the dam built by other projects normally doesn't last long. Yeah, so how do we convince them? This need to be maintained. This need to be monitored. Yeah, so we also train them on how to monitor the groundwater table changes. Yeah, because they have also need to learn why we built the dam, what for, what is the benefit to the nature. So this is we train them on how to measure the groundwater table every month. So then we collected the data from month to month. It is very interesting. We compared the groundwater table before the dam was constructed and after. So that is still ongoing. So it is very interesting. And then we can come up with conclusion. Actually, by rewetting the peatland, we can reduce the fire incident, but we can also gaining the amount of carbon emission. Yeah, because the peat is getting wet. So then we can calculate it roughly how much carbon that we gain by rewetting the peatland. So this is, you can see on how the block of the canal combined with the aquaculture floating net cages, and then this measurement by local community. And then we also provide them with the training on how to use the fire brigade. Yeah? So this is very interesting one. We developed a very simple early warning system. So this table with the board, the red one indicate bahaya api tinggi. It's a very strong alert with the fire. And then this one, yellow, just like traffic light. When you go have the green, okay, that's safe. Yellow, be ready. Red, dangerous, you have to stop. So how we did it? So we built this kind of monitoring table, yeah. So we inserted just next to the dam, and then we combine the information, yeah. So this kind of very small rod, you can see here, this rod go up and go down. It depends on how the water table underneath it's behave. During the rainy season, when the groundwater table is very high, so the rod will go up. Yeah. So this one, the black arrow, it has a wording called hari ini. Hari ini means today. So it is very interesting. People do the patrol, yeah, almost every day. So they just look at this kind of sign, yeah, signboard. So if this rod going down into the red, so they have to be very alert with the fire. Yeah? So the other thing, they built also the tower, yeah, very cheap. They were using the jackfruit timbers to monitor if the fire happening not far from their facilities. Yeah, and also this one. Look at this, the dam that we blocked. So we try to make use the precipitation data, yeah, with the patrol timeline. I mean, the like a kind of a guideline. Yeah, so this precipitation data we've collected from the 2008. So it's almost 13 years until today. Very interesting because this area, it has 2 times of precipitation, high precipitation, and 2 times also the drought. So you look at here. So and then what happened? We are using this kind of chart, yeah, to block the spillway because we don't want the water keep going out, even though we already block it. Yeah, but before the drought is coming, so we ask the community to put this kind of things, sandbag or sometimes just simple plank, yeah, to block the water in order to maintain the water still in the canal, so the rewetting still going on. Yeah. So you can see how the women, how they prepare the seedlings and then how they look after. Yeah, look at this. Even they purchase by themselves. Yeah. So not all of this kind of plant species for the polyculture provided by the project. The project will just provided them with the technical skill on how to prepare the seedling, how to maintain, where to plant, how to monitor. But since the community were very keen to have more trees for the future, so they purchase by their own, using their own money. Yeah. So this is very interesting. This is the result, the latest one. It was happening last week. This is June. Sorry, last month. Yeah. It was very interesting because of the blocking of the canal, and it was a very heavy precipitation in June. You know what happened? The water in the canal, and then it overflowed into the surrounding area. From the greenhouse gases point of view, this is very positive. Why? Because we were able to keep the peatland wet. Yeah, but of course, for the people doesn't want to have wet ecosystem the whole time. Yeah, so but this doesn't last more than 2 weeks. Now the water is already receding. So you can see here, this graph is the correlation between the precipitation and then the blue one underneath it is the groundwater table. It is very interesting. The more the precipitation happening during the rainy season, the closer the groundwater to the surface. And then we can make some kind of conclusion how much carbon being, gained by the project. But I'm not going to talk about it in this presentation. It will be too long. So just to repeat it again. So in the dam where we block, we let the grasses to plant, to grow. Apart from the wild grasses, we also planted the polyculture species like this one, the Jalutong latex. We also planted rattan. Yeah, we monitored, the community monitored this kind of plant every day. I would say almost every day. Yeah, because this project located in their own villages. And this one, we block how to maintain, to keep the water table high in order to keep the peatland wet. Yeah. So this is very interesting. Why we planted the grasses? Yeah, let the grasses on the wing of the dam, because this plant will actually detain the soil particle. Because this in the dam, we fill in with the mineral soil. It's not a pit, but underneath is a peatland. So by doing that, by having this kind of grass planted on the top, so that will keep the soil there. Not to let the soil wash away during the rainy season. So look at this. Yeah, because subsidence is happening almost every week. Yeah, in this kind of construction. So that's why the people need to maintain, to fill in with the new mineral soil. Yeah, and also to plant it with other things like grass and other plant species. Yeah? So very interesting. It doesn't mean that we are free from fire. We have problem with the fire also. It happening last February, where the precipitation were very low, the lowest precipitation in the year, normally happening in February. So there was a fire accident. And the next week after the fire, we found the local community, but it is not part of our project. Yeah? People from outside, they planted the oil palm seedlings in the area which were burnt in February, and then they planted with the oil palm seedling in March. And then you can see here, so how is the seedling now looks like? It's already very big. This is our community where they're involved in our project site using this kind of loan conditional condition. Yeah. So this is the aquaculture using the floating net cages. Yeah. So that's all I can present it. Yeah. So conclusion and suggestion, you can have a look in the slide. Yeah. The use of areca nut trunks for the dam construction is promising because there is no need to use logs from natural forests. Peatland rewetting must be followed by monitoring changes in peatland groundwater level and referring to a very long rainfall data collected from the project location. Integrating peatland rewetting with polyculture and aquaculture will have a double economic impact. The peat will stay wet because polyculture and aquaculture, both of them love water. The key to successful application of nature-based solution in peatlands depends on the commitment of the community, local community, and the right direction provided by the facilitators in the field. Peatland rewetting activities through the participation and commitment of local communities are the main case to support the success of eco-DRR. Community participation in peatland restoration and in disaster risk reduction using the bio-right approaches or the conditional loan or conditional grant approaches is promising. However, this method requires intensive guidance and supervision by field facilitators. Last but not least, my message is nature-based solution, to my personal understanding, still not proven. Yeah. How long it will last, but at least from my side, I can say, because we've been working in the peatland restoration since 2001, so it's almost 20 years ago in Central Kalimantan, we found this kind of nature-based solution. It sounds good, yeah, theoretically, but who can guarantee this kind of infrastructures will be there for longer? So this is a big challenge to all of us. Yeah, the concept is good. Yeah, even though currently we are working in Central Java, we call it building with nature. Yeah, in the coastal erosion, we try to dealing with the mangrove. We try to use the semi-permeable structure in order to protect the area from erosion, but still we still have problem. What is the problem? The area is keep subsiding. Yeah, because there are subsidence. And the second main issue is that we have to consider the seawater level is going up because of the climate change. So this is one of the big challenges to all of us who are dealing with nature-based solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Niaman. That was an excellent presentation, and I think it really touched on a lot of the key components of nature-based solutions, making sure you have the community on board right away before the project even starts and having buy-in from them, and also supporting that financial component as well. There are a few questions in the chat box. I think the first few really revolved around the oil palm. The first one we have, sorry, I've lost it. The first one is about whether you have faced any challenges from the oil palm companies on this initiative, or are they supportive of this? Could you answer that for us?
Very interesting question. Yeah, this is why we took 6 months to socialize our concept. Yeah, people are actually need some kind of guidance from us. How dangerous actually the pit subsidence, the pit fire, the peatland fire, and also with the waterway, whatever. Because we told them, if you do the business as usual like today, you planted the oil palm and you drain the water table, one day your villages will be gone. Yeah, because actually what is a peatland ecosystem? Peatland ecosystem, I would say it is a kind of lake ecosystem, but currently not yet refilled. It is still accumulated by the organic matter. So once the pit material is gone, the area will look like a basin, will fill in by water. So that's why after the fire problem, because of the pit keep burning, and then the next problem will happening is the flood. Why? Because all the pit materials already gone, and then the area will be inundated by water. Yeah, I can talk a lot about this because I have the data. I visited many of the concession companies and I was surprised. Many of their concession areas were currently already inundated and no longer productive. So what does it mean? One day this area will be left behind. So back again from the economic point of view, that's why we try to introduce the aquaculture using the floating net cages and with the polyculture, because they are aware many of the oil palm trees already leaning. That's a very good sign that the area already subsided. But with the tree polyculture species that we introduced there, they know that, yeah, because they have it in their land in the past before they converted the land into oil palm. They said, well, this rotten, it used to be growing in this particular area. Yeah? Why not to go back to the past? Yeah? So that is polyculture. It's one kind of approaches where in the future people can still have economic value. So I hope it answered the question.
I think it did, but maybe we can hear from the question asker in the text if there's any further questions. There was another question linked to the financial component on whether the financial benefits of the bio rights was higher than that from growing palm oil. So did the community do that because it was a financial advantage, or was it a combination of your education on the benefits of peatlands, or could you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, actually the bio right, forget about the bio right, people don't understand in the field. We just call it a conditional loan. Once they're successful to participate in the project, maintaining the groundwater, avoiding fire, yeah, not using chemical, whatever, all of the loan that we provided to them will be converted into grant. So this is much easier for them to absorb instead of using the term of bio right. Sounds very strange animal, right? So according to them, also from our judgment, bio right, it is not the matter of the amount of money that they can receiving, but they get a free education from us. Yeah, because they're participating in the training. Yeah, they're participating in this kind of how to build the canal blocking. So I can tell you the dams that we built actually built by the community because that is part of the bio right contract. But of course, we hired civil engineer. Yeah, because that dam, it is not just looks as simple as what it is. Yeah, so I would say again, I mean the bio right, it is not the amount of money, but it's how actually we let the community learn about many other things. Yeah, so the bio right is a kind of quite political things, a strategic way on how to bind the community, how to make them committed to what we would like to achieve. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I understand. That was a really interesting approach that you guys have taken there, and it seems like it's really paying off in just a short time. So, like you said, it will be interesting to see how long it goes into the future. But I'm hopeful it's sustainable in many ways. And maybe the last question is about the optimum water level for agricultural activities such as oil palm or cash crops on peatlands.
Okay.
The question asker says, as for fire prevention, totally wet or flooded is good, of course, but then plants can't survive in too flooded environments. So could you just speak to that?
Okay. By nature, peatland is actually wetlands. So what does it mean? Even though there is no oil palm, yeah, the peatland will be re-wetted. I mean, it will be inundated by water during the rainy season. Yeah. So back again to the how deep the water table that should be maintained. So our government already stipulated, yeah, the water table for the cultivation areas need to be maintained maximum 40 centimeter from the surface of the peatland. Deeper than 40 centimeter, the area is categorized as degraded. Yeah, I know it sounds very good on the paper, on the government policy. Yeah, but in reality, as I just show you in my presentation, the water table fluctuating. Yeah, even though we already blocked the canal. Yeah, even though we already put some kind of dams in many canals, no guarantee, because we experienced last June all of the area inundated. Why? I was surprised because the precipitation just in one day was 115 millimeter in one day. Yeah. So what does it mean? Inundation, it is not because of the dam, but it is also because of the precipitation and also because of the subsidence. The more subsided the area, the more they will suffering because of the precipitation. So back again with the groundwater table, we, based on scientific kind of a report that we explored, normally we use the figure of 20 centimeter. So that's why the signboard, yeah, the early warning system signboard, the green color, that's indicate the water table already exceeding less than 20 centimeter, which is close to the surface. Yeah, but the red one indicate the water table drop below 40 centimeter. So we are developing this kind of signboard based on scientific information, but it is also based on the policy that developed by the government. I hope it answers your question.
Great. Yeah, I think that the signboard is such an innovative use of technology. It's very simple technology to kind of show people what the sense is of the water table. So really, really great to see. And thank you for your very comprehensive answers and presentation. All right.
Thank you.
I think further questions. So with that, we will move on to our final presentation. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Our final presenter is Shakila Kayum from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Kumamoto University, Japan.
Good afternoon.
Shakila will present on the role of pandanus trees as a means of eco-DRR in St. Martin's Island, Bangladesh against natural disasters. So Shakila, the floor is yours if you'd like to start sharing your screen.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. This is Shakila Kayum. I am doctoral student, Kumamoto University, Japan. I am going to present my study entitled Role of Pandanus Trees as a Means of Eco-DRR in St. Martin Island, Bangladesh against the natural disaster. Now I'm going to introduce my study. Bangladesh is a very small country situated in South Asia, with a numerous population and full of poverty. And the vulnerability is high due to numerous population, and climate change also adds a new dimension to the community risk and vulnerability. St. Martin is the only coral reef island of Bangladesh and susceptible to cyclonic storm surge and high tide and so on due to its location and shape. And eco-DRR is very essential to be considered to protect the island from further damage by the natural disaster, because it is fair to be coral reefs by 2045. And I think here everybody knows about eco-DRR, so I shouldn't go to the definition. But according to Stella and Salisma, eco-DRR is the sustainable management, conservation, and restoration of ecosystem to reduce disaster risk with the aim of achieving sustainable and resilient development. Now it is catching the attention of the whole world because of its noteworthy success, especially for coastal, riverine, and mountainous region. There are so many benefits of eco-DRR, among them risk reduction and efficacy during and after disaster. It is effective against different types of natural disaster, and also it is low cost for construction, operation, and maintenance. It also provides ecosystem services during the non-disaster time. Here are some eco-DRR example past studies. So we can see there are some cases of eco-DRR in Europe, but very few in Asia and rare in Bangladesh. Most of the relevant research indicated the necessity and potential of eco-DRR. Unfortunately, there are no studies which quantify the mitigation effect in depth, and it is not yet clear what kind of disaster should be used in Bangladesh. Some author stated a method of ecosystem-based adaptation, or EBA, with a soilless agricultural practice in Bangladesh, where water hyacinth is used as floating basin and organic manure is replaced with the soil. This practice is used for waterlogged condition or wetland ecosystem. Another author stated a coastal sub-district and concluded that mangrove and sand dunes to be potential to climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction in coastal areas of Bangladesh. Here are some examples of eco-DRR in riverine system, where the main objective is coping with flood, preventing flood and flow velocity and riverbank erosion. In this figure, we can see there are floating agriculture in Bangladesh during flood season and in wetland environment. In this figure, there are vegetation checks dam in Nepal, which is used for flood control, flow reduction, and riverbank erosion control. And the last two figures shows the before and after condition in Kerala, India, where riverbank erosion was the main problem and vetiver grass was applied to control the erosion. Here are some examples of existing eco-DRR for coastal protection. And the main objective is preventing strong winds, sands, and tidal surge waves. Here we can see black pine forest of Saga Prefecture, Japan. It is used for strong wind and sand. In this figure, it is showing the mangrove forest of Sundarban, Bangladesh, where mangrove is used to control tidal surge, cyclonic wind, and waves. And it also control the erosion. Here is the figure of coral reef of St. Martin Island, Bangladesh, and this coral reef can reduce waves, cyclonic waves, and tidal surge heights. There are some past studies where we can found mangrove plants are very capable of various disasters and very effective for coastal areas. In order to make surge height calculation, various researches and models are studied, and Bao et al. Produced numerical model which is applied to find out the surge height reduction with and without pandanus trees in order to realize the effects. In other researchers concluded that coral reef reduce wave heights by 70%. This is the location of St. Martin Islands. Here it's very tiny and all the southernmost part of Bangladesh. And the location, the area is only 3.4 square kilometer, and this is the only coral reef of Bangladesh. The length is here 1.5 kilometer and width is maximum 0.5 kilometer. The island is rich in biodiversity but susceptible to various kind of natural disaster, and coral reef is threatened and under the risk of extinction. And the island is too small and remote, far from mainland. So sometimes some initiative should be considered to protect the island from being extinct, as it is very small. Government policymakers often ignore the island. And eco-DRR is a new concept for Bangladesh and Asia. In practice, it should be considered to the existing role and efficiency of those elements. Here the figure shows the existing condition of existing forest of pandanus trees in St. Martin Island. The front row is the pandanus trees, and the behind rows are coconut trees. It's accompanied with coconut trees, and it can be said that eco-DRR can be the optimum solution for disaster risk reduction in Bangladesh, and proper research and study is required to understand the possibility of eco-DRR in Bangladesh. And as I mentioned before, it's very small and poses high risk to natural disaster as being an open sea island, and apparently there are no barrier to defend the strong wind and surge induced by the cyclone and high tides. As it is considered ecologically sensitive area, so one non-government organization called POST facilitated the conservation and plantation activity of pandanus tree. But however, it's not yet clear how much the disaster mitigation effect has changed due to plantation activity. In this study, attempts have been taken to identify the reduction of disasters due to plantation of the pandanus trees. Here we can see during the cyclone Titli, the scenario of that island. So it is essential to find out the vulnerable areas of the island to take necessary precaution and suggest suitable land uses. In this study, the vulnerable area of the island is identified to take necessary precautions and to suggest the suitable land use for those vulnerable areas. Purposes of the study: clarify changes in land use and changes in trees from 2010 to current situation 2021. And as I mentioned before, some trees are planted by NGO, and for this I analyze the results from image analysis. Purpose 2: investigate how mass surge is reduced by the pandanus trees and define the inundated areas with the trees. Here I consider three cases. Case 1, the inundation areas without trees, the inundated areas with the trees at 2010, and the inundated areas with the trees at 2021. Purpose 3, find out the vulnerable areas during the surge inundation in 2021. And purpose 4, suggest necessary precaution and suitable land uses. In order to achieve the purposes, the main methods are divided into two major parts. Number one, method for purpose 1. Clarify changes in land use and changes in trees from 2010 and current situation. To achieve these goals, images are collected and analyzed with ADAS Imagine and ArcGIS software. This is the process of image processing. After the final output, the data is the output is fed into ArcGIS to prepare the final land use and land cover change map. This is the method for purpose 2. At first, the suitable model is selected for this purpose. Here, bow model is selected as the area is close to Bangladesh and similar in nature. So here the main parameters used for the regression analysis is initial sea level height, forest bandwidth, slope coefficient B, exponential coefficient EA, tree heights H, and tree density and canopy closure in percentage. The regression equation is this one, and for this after the regression analysis, the digital elevation model is prepared and classified, and then the inundated area or flooded area is identified. Finally, an animation is done with ArcScene. Here I will discuss some results of my study. Land use and land cover change of St. Martin in 2010 and 2020. This map shows the land use map of 2010 and this is 2021. And this graph shows the land use changes in area square kilometer, and these are the area changes in percentage. And the maps reveals that the area of St. Martin Island remains same, so there is no significant erosion during this time. And both images are taken in February, which is dry season, not monsoon season. So the inland, we can see from the image that inland water area increased during the period. And from the land use and land cover analysis, it had been clear the mangrove and coconut tree doubled in this period due to new plantation of trees arranged by the NGO, and vegetation, sands, and agriculture decreased by this period. Here I will discuss about the mangrove covered area has almost tripled within the period. This is the only pandanus tree area in 2010, and this is in 2021. And from LULC analysis, it has been found that the area of pandanus and coconut tree increased twice from this period, which was 0.66 square kilometer in 2010, which becomes 1.32 square kilometer in 2021. And in 2010, the total area of pandanus tree was approximately 25,000 square meter. In 2021, the area of pandanus trees increased to 87,000 square meter. The area increased 3.4 times during this period. Here is the flood analysis results. For the first figure shows the case 1 without any pandanus trees, where 3.885 meter high surge will inundate almost 1.19 square kilometer or 35% of the island. In 2010, when some pandanus tree exist, it reduced to 3.75 meter and inundated almost 31% of the land of the island. But in 2021, the surge height reduced to 3.58 meter, and eventually this submerged 0.29 square kilometer or 26.7% area. Here the graph shows flooded and non-flooded area distribution is in percentages, where we can see the last case shows the lowest result. And here is the flooded and non-flooded area in square kilometer. In 2021, the non-flooded area is 2.51 square kilometer, and these three maps showing the inundated areas of the island, where the red means flooded area. Here is the animation, flood animation for last case. Here we can see this area will be flooded in 2021 with the surge height of 3.885 meter. From the study results, it have been found that pandanus tree could reduce the surge height, which also reduce the inundated area in volume. And in this study, it have been found that trees saved almost 75% area with the surge height of 3.885 meter. And there are some proposal for land use. The high elevation area must be kept for necessary or general uses, necessary infrastructure and general uses. And the southwestern part has no buffer zone. In this area, there is no buffer zone. So this area is vulnerable. So here, mangrove belt must be introduced in this area. And the lagoons and inland water should kept untouched, not only to protect the island from surge, but also to protect the coral and mollusk. Now I will conclude my study saying this. The image analysis, from the image analysis, we clarified the changes in land use and changes in area of pandanus and coconut trees. In 2010 to 2021 in St. Martin Island, Bangladesh, against the natural disaster. And it is found that the land use, pandanus and coconut tree twice in this period, and the area of pandanus 3.4 times during the period. And the LULC change analysis, we can see pandanus and coconut trees increased twice, and in total area of pandanus was approximately 3.4 times during the period. We suggest suitable land use and the areas are more that must be protected. From this study result, it has been found pandanus tree could reduce surge height, uh, which also reduce the inundated area in volume. So in this study, we can see almost 75% area in 2010 was inundated with the height of 3.885 meter, which reduced in 2021 to 3.58 meter. And the high elevation land should kept for necessary or general use, and the other the southernmost area, which is extremely vulnerable to storm surge, a buffer belt is proposed here to protect that area. And thank you all. That's it.
Thank you. That was a very interesting presentation. I feel like in coastal communities, when we talk about eco-DRR or nature-based solutions, we often hear about the mangroves, and it's great to hear about another superpower tree that's helping to protect our coastal communities. I don't think there are any questions in the chat box, but I encourage everyone to answer that, ask them if you do have any. Personally, I have a question for you.
Sure.
In your model or in your studies, did you consider the health of the reef over those years?
Sorry.
I'm wondering if you noticed any trends or if there's any data on the coral reef offshore and whether that would have had any impact on the height of the inundation during the storms.
Actually, I do not have much data on that, and due to COVID, I can't go in the field to collect data. And in Bangladesh, data is very rare.
Yeah, I understand. I was thinking because, of course, this is something you talk about when you talk about storm surges, and you talk about if you have a healthy coral reef offshore, you are reducing the surge. So it would be interesting because I know you said it was Bangladesh's only coral island with a coral reef. It would be interesting to see if the reef provided any barrier to the communities. If there are not any other questions for Shakila, it doesn't seem that there are. We'd like to thank you. That was a great presentation. And yeah, we really got to see, different ecosystems represented here, which was great. So there's a comment that was fascinating. Thank you, Shakila. And I will just go back to sharing my screen here with some closing ideas and suggestions for us. So I'd like to thank our presenters for sharing their work today. And I know we didn't get to travel to Suncheon for this symposium as we originally planned, but we got to go from peatlands in Indonesia to coastlines of Bangladesh and really demonstrate the diversity of wetlands and the work that all of us are doing to strengthen nature-based solutions and eco-DRR in the region. I would also like to take this opportunity to kind of highlight the IUCN Global Standard on Nature-Based Solutions. So if you're not aware of it already, this is a new tool to help assess and evaluate nature-based solution interventions. And there were a couple examples today where I think this would be a really interesting activity for you to do. So the standard was developed with a range of stakeholders and is based on 8 criteria that you can use to assess your intervention, whether it's an intervention you've already done or something planning or something ongoing. And the criteria include things like addressing societal challenges, which we saw a lot of today, designing at scale, net gains for biodiversity, inclusive governance, and policy components, among really a lot of other things. Each criteria has a set of indicators, which are also used in the self-assessment. And a bit about the standard, it is kind of a 3-component machine, if you will. There's a booklet with the 8 criteria and the indicators explaining them in depth. There's also a guidance document, which provides the scientific background and documentation on this development of the standard. And there's also a self-assessment Excel tool, which is a tool that you can download and you use to assess your intervention. And that eventually yields a traffic light, as Nyoman said, with red as something that needs your attention, yellow as something that's moderate, and green that's something that's good. So you can see on the screen, you can see the different criteria and an example intervention. And in the end, what you get is this spider chart on the right side. So that shows you that this intervention has met 100% of the criteria for societal challenges, but it could be strengthened when you look at criteria for example, economic feasibility. So the standard isn't meant to tell you something is or is not a nature-based solution. It's meant to tell you where you can strengthen it to make it a better nature-based solution. So I would encourage you to join the IUCN user group. You can feed into the governance of the standard through the user group. The feedback of the standard and of the tool goes to the International Standards Committee. They're also supported by a scientific committee to provide this really scientific evidence base. And we're also working on developing national and regional hubs. We're working with our colleagues in China to develop a regional hub for Asia, which we will provide more information on soon. So we're really trying to make this a real community of practice. We want everyone to be involved. We do not want it to be an IUCN thing by any means. So we encourage you to have a look at it with your colleagues and try to apply it to some of your projects. And finally, please sign up for the Global Standard User Group. That's a really important next step. And also during the IUCN World Conservation Congress in September, we'll have a number of events, talks, pitches on scaling up nature-based solutions. There'll also be an exhibit at the pavilion and lots of high-level dialogue. So please join us. It will be very exciting, and I will post some links in the chat box if anyone is interested. I realize that I put links on a PowerPoint that cannot be shared. And besides that, thank you everyone. Really, thank you for your active participation, audience members, and thank you for RRC-EA for all of the coordination that went into this. I'm sure it wasn't easy. And yeah, please join us. Sungbo, I'm going to say tomorrow at 16 o'clock Korean Standard Time for session 3 on wetland management, conservation, and restoration.